Thank you once again for joining me for another book review. And we're going to jump right on into it. This book is called Where the Creek Bends by Linda Lael Miller. And this is the cover of the book. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, so this story starts off with a runaway bride, Madison. Madison was to marry Jeffrey, who turned out to be an excessive mama's boy. So she dodged a bullet there. Barely, but she dodged it nonetheless. And you will have to read the book to find out what was Madison's last straw with Jeffrey. And needless to say, I would have had the same reaction. Madison decides to stick around her hometown for a while after this botched wedding situation. Madison is old money wealthy, but has also built a company with her friend Audra. She is in no rush to get back to her city life. While being back in her hometown, she stays at her grandmother Coralie's home. Being back brings up childhood memories for Madison, and she begins to recall a friend she had for a short time named Bliss. Madison begins to wonder whatever happened to Bliss and decides to see if she can find her. During her stay, she also becomes acquainted with Lim and his family. Could this spark a new romance? Well, you'll have to read the book to find out. Now, this story flips between past and present. The present day is told through Madison's experiences, and the past is relayed through the eyes of Bliss. So let me tell you about a few characters you're going to encounter on this story. There is Coralie, Madison's grandmother, who is currently living at a facility due to having dementia. Now, Coralie has lived in this town for decades and is well known. Coralie has held onto a secret about her home and property that, in her coherent moments, tries to tell Madison about. Then we have Lim, who is a wealthy architect and has created an old time ranch western town that he allows movie companies to film on. Now, this is like the second book in about 30 days that has a character named Lim in it. Lim has two children, Keely and Kevin, that he has to get reacquainted with due to them living with maternal grandparents for a year after their mother had died. So, although Lim suddenly has a lot more on his plate, he still wants to get to know Madison because there is just something about her that he is drawn to. Then we have Bliss, Madison's childhood friend, and she relays her experiences as a child and how her life changed. And you will have to read the book to find out if Madison finds Bliss or not. There is a sprinkling of other characters I will let you discover while reading this story. This story was well written and kept me entertained. I enjoyed how the author flipped between the past and the present. It's pretty much about Madison being the runaway bride. She doesn't get married and she decides to stay on her family property, kind of to pick up the pieces, kind of regroup from botched wedding, then decides to find out what happened to her childhood friend Bliss. And in the meantime, she gets acquainted with the town people and Lim and his family. And then we just see the unfolding of what transpires after all of that. One thing I will say, you might get a little turned around in a couple of places, but it added to the revelation when the dots began to get connected. I would have liked a little more of Bliss's experience because I found that very interesting with the different errors being incorporated. And once you read the book, you'll know what I mean by that. And apparently this book was so vivid that I'm literally confused on if I listened to the audiobook or read the physical copy of the book. Now, obviously, I have the physical copy of the book. So that is a very reasonable conclusion is that I read the physical copy of the book. But for some reason, the book was so vivid that it's almost like I feel like I listened to the audiobook. I went to the apps that I usually use for audiobooks and I cannot find where I check this book out. So I have to deduce that I read the physical copy of the book, but I almost want to swear that I listened to it. Even in my notes, I wrote that I read the physical copy. So that to me indicates that this was a very good book because if in my mind it was that vivid, then it was a really good book. I'm still confused and conflicted, but I read it, obviously. So either I read the physical copy or listened to it, but I almost couldn't have listened to it because Libby shows the audiobook version doesn't even come out until July of 2025. Had to have read the physical copy, but it was a good enough story that I got lost within its pages and this story. So it was a good book. So at that rate, with all of that being said, I gave this an 8.5 out of 10. And only because I really wanted more of Bliss's side of the story. I thought that was really interesting. And I felt like the ending could have it kind of been a little bit better. It does leave room for another book, in my opinion. So if there's another book coming, I could be interested in reading it to see what Madison does with the information that she has found out and how that plays out. That would be interesting. But I thought like the ending, I mean, it was a good ending, but at the same time, it was like, ooh, it ended like that. So Libby categorized this book as fiction, romance, and western. Hoopla shows adult fiction, suspense, fantasy, and billionaires. Storygraph has this book under the following categories of dark, romance, mystery, and medium paced. I don't know what this new category, billionaires, is popping up. I mean, yeah, they were both wealthy, but I don't really know if that's really a category. Um, but I have seen that pop up a few times now. So I'm guessing that's a new category for books. I don't know. I'll add that it's really not what I would consider dark. Yeah, it's not really dark. So I don't know where that came in. But the rest is about right. There is death and dementia described in the story. There are no discussion questions provided in the book, so just a few prompts to get going. You could talk about what would you have done in Madison's position at her wedding? How would you have responded? I would have did the same thing, but I would have been like deuces. This is enough. It was probably enough before then, but seeing as they got to this point, yeah, yeah. Mm-mm. Talk about the secret revealed about the property, and would you try to see if it worked or not? Are you that adventurous to be like, oh, let me go try and see what happens? No, it was interesting to see it happen to somebody else. Not so sure I want it to happen to me though. Unless I has a very good reason. But yeah, there's no guarantee. So I don't know. What do you think? Converse about how long one should wait to entertain another relationship after a breakup. Talk about Lim's decision to leave his children with grandparents after their mother died, and the reintegration process. How would you have handled that? Would you have made the decision Lim made? How would you address some of the issues that came up after their reuniting? Speak on the interaction between siblings and how you would have handled the hurt Keeley caused Kevin. So that is some discussion questions to get you started. Once you read the book, you may come up with more. And that's pretty much it for this one. Thank you for tuning in for another book review. I hope I have piqued your interest to make you want to pick up this book and get lost within its pages. Obviously, I certainly did because I was confused on whether I read the physical copy or listened to the audiobook. So yeah, good book. You're gonna get lost in it. Okay. So as always, keep turning the pages, my book lovers.